Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about a mechanic, or rather a series of mechanics, that shows just how important planning ahead can be in Pathfinder 2e. Resistances and weaknesses. If a creature has a resistance or a weakness, it can really make encounters with that particular creature very, very different, while also greatly rewarding scouting and being versatile. Let's start by breaking down what resistances and weaknesses are mechanically, since they work pretty differently when compared to the Pathfinder 1st edition and D&D 5th edition mechanics of the same name. If a creature has resistance to a particular type of damage, whenever it would take that type of damage, it's reduced by the value of the resistance. So if something has 5 cold resistance and it would take 6 cold damage from an attack, it would only take 1 point of cold damage. Weaknesses work the exact same way, except they add damage instead of reducing it. So if a creature has weakness 5 to fire, if it takes 6 points of fire damage, it'll actually end up taking 11. It's hard to understate how effective and impactful an appropriate resistance type can be in the right encounter. If you have fire resistance and you're fighting fire elementals, the fight is going to be a cakewalk in comparison to what it'd be like if you didn't have that fire resistance. On the other hand, the opposite is true. If the monster has a resistance to whatever type of damage you're doing, then you're going to have a much more difficult time. There isn't all that much you can really do to get around energy resistances, but for martial characters dealing with physical resistances, it can be super valuable to just carry around some weapons that are silver, cold iron, or adamantine depending on what you can afford. Just as an example, pretty much all devils have resistance towards all physical damage that doesn't come from a silver weapon, so it can make a really big difference. Similarly, save yourself a world of hurt, and get a ghost touch weapon and just carry it around and thank me later. For spellcasters struggling to dealing with energy resistance, the only advice I can really give you is that pairing spells with multiple energy types can save lives. There is another reason to prepare a variety of damage types though, and that's taking advantage of weaknesses is a horrifyingly effective strategy. At low levels, a creature's weakness to a particular damage type may only be around 2 to 5, but weaknesses normally increase as a creature's level does. I can say from experience that a lot of high-level fiends have like weakness 20 to good damage, and if you can consistently deal good damage, it's incredibly effective. Fights in 2e can be absolutely brutal at times, but if you take advantage of whatever weaknesses a monster has, you can turn a lot of fights around, and don't get me wrong, while low-level creatures may only have like a 2 to 5 weakness, that's pretty significant at low level. When it comes to taking advantage of weaknesses, not all characters are made equally. Generally speaking, spellcasters do alright here, so long as they actually prepare a good variety of spells. The real kings of exploiting weaknesses, though, are alchemists, maguses, and thaumaturges. Alchemists literally have a alchemical bomb that can do any type of damage type in the game, so long as they prepare the right ones. And with the sticky bomb feat, you can make every single bomb do persistent damage, even the ones that do like piercing damage. Don't ask me how that works. This can trigger a enemy's weakness multiple times with one ability, and this is true for literally every character. If you can do persistent damage that triggers an enemy's weakness, that is insanely effective. For any maguses out there, you probably can easily tell that Arcane Cascade's damage is pretty bad, but it is excellent for triggering enemy weaknesses. Even if it's only giving you 2 extra fire damage, if it triggers a weakness, it is amazing. Finally, the Thaumaturge is basically entirely built around exploiting weaknesses. Like, one of their core class abilities is literally called Exploit Weakness. They can make all of their attacks trigger any weakness that a creature might possess, even if they wouldn't trigger it normally, or just straight up give a creature a weakness to their attacks anyway. Really, thaumaturges are a ton of fun. This whole system is great, but I think its biggest effect is really making it so it always feels like planning ahead is a good idea. If you know that you're going to be fighting devils, grab a silver weapon or maybe some silver sheen. Going adventuring in an Arctic tundra? Maybe prepare a couple more fire spells than normal. Resistances and weaknesses are super influential mechanics, while being incredibly easy to understand and capitalize on. And once you start thinking about them, they can really help you inform many decisions across an entire campaign. And honestly, they're just a ton of fun to use. It's really fun seeing that you do like, oh, I didn't roll particularly well in my damage, but then hearing the GM kind of sigh and say, yeah, that was a bit more effective than expected. Thanks for watching. Can you tell that I've been playing a Magus and a Thaumaturge recently, and I really like talking about what those classes are good at? Well, now you can, since I told you. What have your experiences been with all this stuff? Do you think I'm dead wrong? Let me know down below in a comment or something. Regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.